The snow was falling so heavily that night it felt as if the sky itself wanted to erase the world beneath it. Headlights cut through the storm like trembling hope, and the lonely highway stretched ahead, cold and endless. That was the moment Daniel saw her, a barefoot woman in a torn wedding dress, her arms wrapped around herself as she staggered through the swirling snow. Her dress was stained, her hair soaked, and her face frozen with fear and exhaustion. It wasn't a scene he could ever forget, because in the blink of an eye, the single father who barely had control over his own broken life was about to change the entire course of someone else's. And he had no idea she was running not just from a life she didn't want, but from a billionaire fiancé whose world reached farther than she herself knew. If you believe in kindness, second chances, and humanity, please like, comment, share, and subscribe to Ripple of Kindness. Your support helps us continue telling powerful true-to-life stories. Daniel's life had never been easy. After his wife passed away 3 years ago, he had become both mother and father to little Emma, a bright 8-year-old girl who lived with more joy in her heart than Daniel had managed to hold in years. He worked long shifts as a car mechanic, barely earning enough to keep their small rented home warm and stocked with groceries. The night he found the barefoot woman, he had been returning from the workshop after fixing a client's car well past closing time. His bones ached, his mind was tired, and the only thing he wanted was to get home to Emma, tuck her into bed, and forget the coldness life had been giving him lately. But when he saw the woman walking alone, he felt a jolt of concern stronger than exhaustion. Something in her posture screamed of silent suffering, like a person who had finally reached a breaking point. Her white dress, though once elegant and expensive-looking, was torn from the hem and smeared with mud and snow. The fragile heels dangling from her numb fingers made her look even more vulnerable, like a ghost fleeing from something no one else could see. Without thinking twice, he slowed the car and pulled over beside her. She hesitated, frightened and shivering violently, but when she looked into the warm light of his car and saw someone with concerned, not predatory, eyes, she stepped closer. As she collapsed into the passenger seat, barely able to breathe from the cold, Daniel turned up the heat and handed her his spare jacket. She didn't speak, but her trembling hands clutched the jacket with desperate gratitude. He didn't push her for details. He simply drove, letting her warm up, letting her breathe, letting her remember she was safe. Snowflakes blurred the windows, and the world outside disappeared behind the fogged glass as they moved forward. After several silent minutes, the woman whispered her name, Lena. And then the truth followed, slow and painful. She was a runaway bride. Not just from any wedding, but from a ceremony that had cost millions, arranged to bind her to a man whose wealth touched every corner of the city. A billionaire whose influence was so wide, Lena felt like nothing more than a possession in his empire. She had been pressured into the marriage for business reasons, her stepfather had debts, her mother was too afraid to intervene, and the man she was supposed to marry believed money could buy anything, including her future. The moment she realized her life was about to be locked inside golden walls she would never escape, she fled minutes before the vows. Daniel listened quietly, absorbing the weight of her fear. He didn't know what to say or how to fix anything, but he knew what it felt like to be trapped, by grief, by responsibility, by a life that didn't align with the dreams you once held. So he simply told her, with warmth in his voice, that she could stay safe with him and Emma until she figured out what to do next. Lena looked at him with disbelief, as if she'd forgotten such kindness even existed in the world. When they reached Daniel's modest home, Emma woke up from the sound of the door opening. She blinked sleepily and smiled when she saw Lena, instantly sensing something was wrong. Children had a strange ability to see straight into the heart of things, and Emma saw the pain in Lena's eyes long before she could hide it. Without hesitation, the little girl rushed to bring her a blanket and led her to the living room, offering her warmth, safety, and a gentle presence. The following days unfolded in ways none of them expected. Lena, once surrounded by luxury, found unexpected peace in Daniel's small home. She helped with dishes, cleaned without being asked, and read stories with Emma as if she had known her for years. She cried quietly at night, believing no one noticed, but Daniel heard her muffled sobs through the thin walls. He would sit on his bed, staring into the darkness, wishing he could take away her pain just like he wished someone had taken away his own after his wife died. Little by little, Lena began to heal, not from wealth, not from security, but from human connection. She found comfort in the simplicity, in Daniel's gentle strength, in Emma's innocent affection. She discovered how freeing it felt to be valued not as an asset or a trophy but as a human being. But peace never lasts forever, especially when someone powerful is looking for you. One morning, a black SUV rolled slowly down Daniel's street. Men in suits stepped out, knocking on doors and asking neighbors questions. Lena froze when she saw them through the window. Her past had found her. Daniel didn't hesitate, he grabbed her hand and pulled her toward the back door. His protective instinct was stronger than fear. He hid her in the small tool shed at the back of his yard, then calmly answered the door when the men eventually reached his home. They asked if he had seen a woman in a wedding dress running in the area. Daniel looked them straight in the eyes and said no. After they left, Lena collapsed into his arms, shaking with relief. That moment changed everything between them, because she realized that Daniel was not just kind. He was brave. He was willing to stand against forces far greater than himself to defend a woman he barely knew. And Daniel realized that Lena wasn't a fragile socialite, she was a woman who had been fighting alone for far too long. As days turned into a week, Lena felt something she had never felt in her entire life: freedom. The ability to choose. The ability to breathe. The ability to wake up and smile without fear. She learned to cook simple meals beside Daniel, she read bedtime stories to Emma, she began helping around the neighborhood without recognition or attention. She learned to live without luxury, and shockingly, she loved it. But the truth was waiting for her like a storm on the horizon. One evening, Lena received a call from an unknown number, a number that belonged to her mother. Her mother's voice was trembling, apologizing, telling her she had done the right thing leaving, and that she had found the courage to confront Lena's stepfather. The marriage contract had been voided. The billionaire fiancé could no longer force her back. Lena fell to her knees, sobbing. Finally, she was free. Yet freedom came with choices. She could return to her old life, use her education and experience to build the career she had always wanted, and rebuild her relationship with her mother. Or she could stay with Daniel and Emma, two people who had shown her more love in days than she had received in years. The decision carved deep into her heart because for the first time, both paths held hope. The next morning, she made her choice. She took Daniel and Emma to the kitchen and explained gently that she needed to rebuild herself, find stability, and start fresh. Daniel's heart cracked silently, but he nodded, understanding. He didn't want to hold her back, not after everything she had escaped. Lena hugged Emma tightly, promising she would return, promising she would stay in their lives. And she left with tears in her eyes, leaving Daniel with the beautiful, painful ache of loving someone he believed he could never have. Months passed. Daniel returned to his quiet life, pouring himself into work, raising Emma as best as he could, and trying not to think about the woman who had walked barefoot into his life on a snowy night. He often wondered where she was now, if she was smiling, if she was safe, if she ever thought of him. And Emma often asked when Lena would visit again. Daniel would smile softly and tell her soon, even when he wasn't sure. Then one spring afternoon, as cherry blossoms drifted down the street, Emma screamed joyfully from the yard. Daniel rushed outside, and froze.